plants. The green frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. Hey, this is Blaine from the Horticult. What's up, everybody? This episode is number 43, Fall Cleanup. And we get into how to clean up your garden in the fall. Because it's fall, and it's time. So, things we get into, we talk about 3 different prepping areas. We talk about your lawn. We talk about your flower beds. We talk about your garden areas. All those you can treat differently and probably should. So, we get into those. Cutting back or not to cut back. We get into leaf cleanup, why to do it, why not to do it. And then we could talk a little bit about how to prep your garden, your like veggie garden, and put it to bed. That's it. That's the episode. Hope you like it. There you go. Let's get it on. This is Blaine.
And this is B-Rad.
And we are the Horticult. And thanks for listening. So today's podcast, we are talking about fall cleanup. Whoop, whoop.
Yes.
It is October. We're in the month of October. So we want to get... We're going to have to put this out sooner than some other ones because this is the time. So I've just decided in my noggin that this podcast needs to come out before some other ones that we've recorded because it's more important.
Before, say, winter cleanup?
Yeah, exactly.
Spring
Which
cleanup.
I was just thinking that was one of our very first podcasts. Was winter cleanup. I can't remember what number it was.
Yeah, winter interesting.
It was winter
cleanup,
gardening. Winter gardening.
Yeah.
We talked about winter gardening.
That was a great
And
one.
now we've come around. We're almost at a year. So, awesome. So, fall cleanup. What comes to mind, what I was thinking,
Okay.
just some tasks that we need to accomplish to get our garden ready for winter. That's what we need to kind of be focusing on. Not necessarily waiting for winter to come, but now it's a lot of the stuff that we could probably talk about in winter gardening. But these things, if you really wanted to but this is cleanup. We're cleanup specifically on cleanup, prepping for that, for the winter. Most of us have lawns, and one thing we could do is prep our lawns. So the two times of year that our lawns grow well, because we are a cold, seasonal lawn. There's cold and there's warm.
Right.
So the season that our lawns grow well is the colder season, so spring and fall. This is when you need to hit it with some root-growing potassium.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizes. Yeah, fertilizer.
So, yeah, feed, nutrients.
Yeah, so get that into the plant before it goes totally dormant to get it to establish those roots. Because for 2 reasons. One, it'll overall give that the plant, it'll be more healthy overall. And 2 is that we happen to be in a drought. You know, Utah is in a drought. That way you don't have to water it as much to keep it as green. So if it's stronger and healthier overall, then you don't have to water it as much. When it needs the water, it can handle the heat stress a little easier. That has been one thing I found. So I've been going around spraying lawns for a friend, and we've been doing this and that. And a lot of people have said this summer has really stressed out and hurt their lawns. And it's either, 1, they had weak grass, and 2, they probably had been overwatering it and their root systems weren't deep enough.
You know, that's speaking of that, my experience this last summer, my turf grass, I have noticed that the edges, in particular next to concrete or hard surfaces, have suffered and have kind of died out a little bit, and that was unusual.
Yeah.
So yeah, being hot and just, I guess, scorched it, whatever.
I don't know how long we went without rain, but it was a long freaking time.
Yeah. And it wasn't that it was in the hundreds. It was in the 90s, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But it was just so long.
Yeah.
Without precip.
This was a rough summer for lawns.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing you can do is aerate. So you aerate that lawn in the fall. You fertilize it with, I would say, small amount of nitrogen and more amount of potassium just to get it going. And that is one thing you could do for your lawn. And cut back the water. The water is only there to supplement how much is being evaporated out. So in these cool times right now, you don't need to be watering your lawn. I actually turned mine off. So
yeah,
we're
me
good.
Too.
I needed to wait for it to actually get pretty deep. I mean, it's been hot.
Yeah.
All the way through September.
Temperatures are dropping. Rain showers are coming in.
So that's one thing you can do for your lawn health.
So reduce water. Reduce your sprinkler system water. Aerate the lawn. Fertilize with a higher level of potassium.
Yeah. So one thing too, I just thought I remember posting is that this out of spring, summer, and fall, the time when people water their lawn more than they should, is the fall.
Dude.
The fall. So you gotta really monitor that. You gotta really think about your water usage.
I think people are just kind of lackadaisical when it comes to.
Right, I gotta adjust the sprinkler timer.
I have to walk out to my garage. Should I or should I not? No, just kidding. Yeah, that's great. One thing really quickly, fall cleanup and prepping the yard to add to the list would be a pre-emergent herbicide. If you're into that kind of thing, if you're into that whole thing, because trust me, it will pay dividends if weeds in your lawn and beds, flower beds and whatnot. That's been the bane of my summer, and so yeah, pre-emergent.
So you might be able to find some fertilizer that has pre-emergent included in the mix.
Oh right, it would say like weed block or something like
right.
Weed.
So I was thinking more like, I think what we were using to spray it was 7 and 7. So 7 nitrogen, 7 potassium.
Oh, yeah.
And then
NPK. So that's the last number. So the first number and the last number.
Yeah.
7.
So it was a big fat 0 in the middle. 707.
Oh, cool. Okay.
With it, and then you get a pre-emergent on there. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot of potassium, but
yeah.
So next would be, say you got some flower beds. Okay. What can I do there? So I actually just posted out an article that says not to clean up your flower beds. Like deadheading, cutting them all the way down, doing those things that you normally would do, cutting them back, your perennials and whatnot. So why? Why did we cut them down before? Is because there's so much to do in the spring. I took that as, we're cleaning everything out, and then we're getting it ready for the spring.
Well, and for me, it's a visual thing. I feel like I'm ready for winter when everything's ripped out, cleaned up, and topped off. You know what I'm saying? But by doing that, it creates probably more of a sterile habitat,
right,
for the critters. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, you have your spent flowers that can give seeds to birds and mice, or maybe you want mice in your yard. Might for the cat, so the cat doesn't eat the birds; it has the mice to eat. But just critters overall. Totally,
yeah, I'm down.
And then it also can add some winter interest in that it kind of has this, like the first snow, cascading over these little balls instead of just being flat or whatever. It gives a little bit more winter interest. And that's one thing we've talked about with ornamental grasses, that instead of cutting them down in the fall, let them get the snow on them, and they just look beautiful. It's like a little snow fountain. And then in the spring, cut them back. Yeah. So that's, I guess it's kind of like a flipping of what we used to do. We in Marinda, that was what our season was. We were cutting everything back.
Yeah.
I think it also takes energy away from the perennials. So by cutting them in the spring or in the fall, they would be able to take that nutrients that is up in the leaves and whatever and bring it back into the root system and use it to regrow. That was one we were talking about, tulips and daffodils. And by cutting them too early, they're not being able to take in that nutrients from the leaves. So you have to let them go all the way brown.
Yeah.
So it's storing it. So by cutting it, we're robbing it of that nutrients. So that's another reason.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. I mean, just to help those perennials be able to rejuvenate.
Yeah.
Store those starches and sugars down in the root system in the crown area and whatnot.
It's such a great time though to be outside gardening. The fall is my favorite season by far. Because of cooler weather, just the smells, the colors changing. So you want to be out there as much as you can. So you could take this time to clean up other areas of your beds, like clean up debris. You could do some pruning of your shrubs. Like now would be a good time to do it. You could add more mulch into it to help.
That's a great idea.
And it's cool, and you're not going to die doing it, doing a couple wheelbarrows or a couple yards, like cubic yards. It's a better time than in the summer to do it, just because it's so freaking hot.
Well, and remember, too, if you're adding compost or mulch to your beds, great time to do it. But prior to that, go ahead and broadcast out some fertilizer, some nitrogen fertilizer, so that the microbes and the bacteria that will help break that down do not rob the nitrogen from your plants and then make them go chlorotic and anemic. But mulch and compost can act kind of as a blanket for a lot of things as well. And so the fall is a great time to do that.
And this is the time that you should be planting. Planting those perennials, planting those shrubs, planting those trees. I mean, I heard a guy on the radio, I can't remember where he was, it was a sports channel, but he was talking about whether or not he could plant trees in the fall or the spring. And I'm like, plant them in the freaking fall! I was like, but I didn't want to call or whatever, because I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is the time. It is perfectly fine. It's actually, I think it's better. Because they slip into dormancy. You don't have as much of the transplant shock, and they'll able to recover, go dormant, shoot up in the spring.
Yeah.
The only problem is everyone wants to plant in the spring because they're excited, things are getting green, and instead of planting something that you paid $30 for, goes to dormancy and
waiting,
you don't see it.
And waiting.
Yeah. You don't even know if it's going to make it through the winter, and you paid, So it's a little harder to do that. I can see why people do it in the spring because they're excited, they want to get it in the ground and have it be pretty right away. Where this is like, we're going to not really pay attention to you for a couple months.
Right.
So it kind of sucks.
That is kind of hard to do.
Sucks a little bit.
But also, this is the time when discounts.
It's true.
For perennials, shrubs, and trees. In fact, I'm planning on getting a couple of red buds. Hopefully, they're still out there in the nursery. Some residual and leftover stuff.
That's what I was going to say. Is that's another thing about being in the fall, buying your stuff in the fall, is there's way less variety of what you can get. You gotta be a little. You can't be too picky.
Yeah. Now
it's what they have is what they have. They're not going to order anything in until until spring.
But usually there's 25, 30, 40% discount usually, right?
Right. They're trying to move it.
Yeah.
They want to get it out.
Yeah.
So so there's pluses and minuses.